Hi, my name is Todd Leonard.
And my name is Herb Montgomery, and we're just talking.
Please take a moment to click the like icon, the subscribe button, and the bell icon. Thank you very much.
So, as you can probably tell, I am just getting over a cold that developed into mild bronchitis that has now turned into laryngitis. So, we're going to try to make it through this tonight. And I have this, I want to say it's a sexy smoker voice. It's probably not. It's probably more like frog or toad voice, right? But I'm going to tell myself
So
whatever I want to hear tonight. So,
it's 50 years of smoking voice.
so, so each week, if you're new to this show, each week Todd and I take a moment to talk about the upcoming weekend's lectionary readings from the Gospels. And our goal in doing this is to talk about these readings in the context of love, inclusion, societal justice, social justice. And our hope is that our talking will be just talking, as in justice. But we also hope that something will be said during this time that will inspire us, along with you, to do more than just talking. So, Todd, what passage are we looking at this week?
Well, Herb, we are looking at Luke chapter 9, verses 28 through 43. And just a pause to say that tonight represents uh, our 101st episode. We didn't realize that last week was our 100th episode until after we recorded it, or we would have said something then. So this is 101, and
What a great
we
milestone.
we this means something.
It doesn't feel like we've been doing this for 100 episodes.
No, it doesn't.
That's like two
But
years at least,
at least it's
or maybe less.
and we're in our just started our third season. So we just completed 2 years of doing this, and we're just into our third season. And anyway, we're having fun.
Yeah, unless we get any really bad comments, we're here to stay. I mean, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we still have an audience, so we're gonna keep going for at least a little while. So anyway, thank you all for
But
joining us for the ride.
yeah, it's been an adventure. So thank you guys. Thank you guys for putting up with the rough moments and the not so rough moments, and we're glad you're here.
Yeah. So, and
So
speaking of
this week,
going on a journey, we have this moment in the journey of Jesus and the disciples. That's a nice segue, isn't it?
yeah, that's beautiful, Todd.
Thank you.
That's what I like about you is your talent for segues.
Segways, that's right. They should name a motorized two-wheeled vehicle after me.
Oh, the Todd.
That's right. That's
I'm gonna go
that's
ride
what
my
they should
Todd
name it,
around the
is the
park.
Todd. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Does anybody rent Todds around here? The Todd.
That's right.
What'd you do on vacation? Oh man, me and the family we rented Todds. That would be
Man,
cool.
that would be, and it sounds so fun.
So this is the Transfiguration passage, right?
Yes.
So Moses and Elijah show up on this mountain with Jesus, who becomes transfigured. Peter says something stupid, as he often does, and yeah, so we hear the voice from heaven again, like at the baptism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what interpretations have you heard? We both grew up in faith traditions. Um, Part of my childhood was in the same faith tradition as yours. What interpretations do you typically hear around this?
Well, I mean, I for me, it's the first one. I mean, there's multiple. The first one, the most common one, is this is the disciples need, especially the three need. need their faith buoyed,
Right.
uh, especially as they're getting ready to face Jesus' crucifixion, that they need a reminder that Jesus is more than just a man, that he is, in fact, a God figure. And so God brings them up to a mountaintop experience and sends down the two greatest prophets of the Israel tradition in Moses and Elijah, and says, "This is my son," and he stands head and shoulders above the two greatest prophets who existed in Israel's history. This is who he is. He is my son. Listen to him. Do what he says. He's the one.
All right.
So that's one. That's so
Yeah, 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 yeah.
that's one. That's the it was a confirmation of Jesus' divinity.
Yep, yep. And it lifts Jesus up as superior to Moses
Yes.
and Elijah. Even though
Yes.
David, King David, was also called God's son,
Right.
somehow we have this as a this existential difference with
Correct.
Jesus, where he is now
I'm sorry.
divine. It's all right. Hey, if they're putting up with my voice tonight, they can put up with some, so we can all put up with your dog. So, so okay, what about, but the thing that rubs me a little bit there is that again, this lists Christianity as being superior to Judaism, right?
Right.
Have you heard it in the like the successionism, like the replacement theology, where God's
Yes.
saying, "Yeah, I know you followed Moses, I know you followed Elijah, but this is my son now.
Yeah.
Follow
Sure.
him."
Sure.
Where now they're
Yeah.
abandoning Moses and Elijah and following Jesus.
Mm. And I heard so much abandoning, but just that yeah, Jesus
Maybe
is
moving
now
on.
moving on, and yeah, and that makes sense in what some Christians talk about, new versus old covenant stuff, and
Right.
this is, yeah, you're leaving the old stuff behind, and yeah,
Yeah. The replacement
yeah,
supersessionism where Christianity
yeah,
is now God's chosen people.
right, yeah,
Right.
which is dangerous.
Problematic. Yeah. Yeah. So the one that I like, that I have the least problems with, no interpretation of this story that takes this story literally is perfect, right? I think the themes of this story are true for sure. It's like Marcus Borg used to, or John Dominic Crossan, one of the two used to say, everything in the Bible's true and some of it happened, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, excuse me. Um, what I resonate with most, the interpretation that I resonate with most, is the idea that this is what Moses stands for. This is what Elijah stood for. This is what these two people were. And by bringing them together with Jesus on a mountaintop when Jesus is about to go into the crucifixion is the defining moment in Luke's gospel, where Luke is telling us how we are to also characterize Jesus. It's more like it's the opposite of one of these things is not like the other. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
Where in other words, here's three things and they are alike. In other words, Jesus didn't show up as part of the priestly class. He didn't show up as a ruler.
Right. He didn't
He
show up,
didn't
but
show
he didn't bring down King David. He
up.
didn't bring down King
Right.
Solomon. He didn't bring down
Exactly. There were no King Solomon, no King David. That's a
No,
great point.
he didn't bring down Aaron. He didn't bring down other priests. He
He
brought
brought down
down
Moses and
prophets.
Elijah, which stood for liberation,
Yes,
the justice ethics of the Torah,
and the
economic justice,
liberation of slavery
and
of
this
Egypt from
liberation of
Egypt.
slavery with from Egypt. That's right. And then Elijah, who at great personal risk to himself stood up to Ahab, right,
Yep.
the king of the day, spoke truth to power when the
Hmm.
vulnerable were being
Hmm.
exploited and harmed. So that's however we characterize those other two. I don't like getting into the business of compare and contrast, where Jesus is um, not like Moses and Elijah. Like he's different than
Hmm.
Moses. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Where
Hmm.
Christianity typically goes that direction, where we say in the Transfiguration story, yes, but this is how Jesus was different,
Hmm.
right? And what I would rather focus on is this is how Jesus was the same.
Yeah.
And I think that helps. It's a corrective for understanding what Jesus's ministry was all about.
And I think it's also interesting that, if they really want, if the purpose of this, again, if we're taking the story literally, that the purpose of this event was to elevate Jesus as divine figure to whom everybody else
Yeah.
is to do obeisance and to worship. You would have thought that Moses and Elijah would have come and bowed down
Oh, good point. Good
before
point.
him. Instead, they're talking amongst themselves as
As
equals,
peers. Yeah, as peers.
and which
That's a
which
good
goes to
insight,
your
Todd.
which goes to your theory of these are people who are in the same business. They are in the same. They have the same calling of bringing about that liberation and that calling to reformation and ending of corruption that you see in Moses and Elijah. That
Yeah,
they are carrying on. It is people. They're colleagues in the mission.
right. Right. So one of the ways that I like to think about social justice work is that it's like a stream. And we get to step into that stream at whatever place we find ourselves and participate with that stream.
Hmm.
But it's not dependent on us. The stream will go on long after us. And the stream has been going a long time before we decided to step into it, right? So it's been going for a long time. There's the back and the front. Moses and Elijah stand for significant figures in that stream of
Hmm.
prophetic justice tradition and Judaism. You know, they're these significant figures in that long stream that Jesus has stepped into, starting with his baptism himself, him and
Hmm.
John the Baptist both standing in this stream. In other words, it's telling us, it's locating Jesus. It's telling us that this is what Jesus was about. This was the tradition he was standing in. This is the stream that he was standing in. This is what he was doing. This is what he was
Yeah.
doing. And liberating slaves from Pharaoh, speaking truth to Ahab. This is what
Hmm.
Jesus was about. The same type of thing.
It
Nowhere
very
do we
much
see
doing the
Moses
same
or
thing with.
Elijah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it just you see the parallels between what between Egypt's enslavement and oppression and Rome's oppression
Yeah.
of the people. You see Elijah speaking truth to Ahab and Jesus, John the Baptist, Jesus speaking truth to
Herod.
Herod
Yeah.
and the local religious and government leaders. You just see just strong parallels there. It lines up very very well.
Yeah. We nowhere do we see Moses or Elijah ever passing out tickets to heaven and giving
No,
people the assurance of an afterlife.
no,
What we do see them doing is standing up to injustice in our present world, calling people away from that injustice, or leading them out from under that unjust oppression
right. And then calling them to develop communities that do not
that don't do what they just
reproduce,
came out of.
right, do not do what they just did or
I
what
mean,
was
the
just done
Torah
to them.
repeatedly, remember, you were slaves in the land of Egypt.
Right,
Don't do this.
right.
Yeah. So that's a great segue. That's a great Todd.
Thank you.
into into just some examples from Moses, like Exodus 22:21. Do not mistreat or oppress the foreigner, for you were a foreigner in Egypt. That would be worth remembering right now.
Yes.
Exodus 22:22 through 23. Do not take advantage of the widow or the fatherless. If you do, and they cry out to me, I will certainly hear their cry. That would be nice to
Yes.
consider as we're gutting Medicaid and Medicare, which is
Yes.
basically for the fatherless and the widows of our
Right.
day, right?
Right.
And then coming down to the front of the house to pray after we do that. And then Exodus 23:6 through 7. This is my last one. Do not deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits. Have nothing to do with a false charge, and do
Mm.
not put an innocent or an honest person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty.
Mm.
So there's a lot there about justice in the legal system
Mm-hmm.
and about not denying justice to the poor. It would be nice to think about that as we cut off funding for U.S. aid.
I was just
As
gonna
the
say, I just, I sure wish the Bible was relevant for today. I just wish there was somehow that it could be speak somehow. I
what
mean,
I
just
noticed
this
this week,
is,
Todd, is that as human beings we haven't changed much. And there are multiple voices in the scriptures, right? But whenever the scriptures speak of justice and defending the oppressed and trying to set society being a corrective to setting society on the right path of economic justice. Um, yeah, that's extremely relevant. I mean, there are places in the Bible that are harmful too, right?
of
So
course,
I want to be careful with that. Like the Bible does promote at places slavery
yes,
and bigotry towards the
bigotry,
LGBTQ
yes,
community, right?
yes,
And patriarchy and misogyny towards
yes,
women.
yes,
That's all in the scriptures too. But when it talks about economic justice, man, that's
yeah,
incredibly relevant right now.
yeah,
We're about to see economic justice denied in the streets.
hmm,
So, do you have any other thoughts on how Jesus is like Moses or Elijah? I'm looking for some examples here for Elijah. Like I can totally see how Jesus was standing in the same tradition as Moses. Well, here's one. One of the things that Ahab was doing was he was taking ancestral lands away
mm-hmm,
from people that owned them, right?
mm-hmm,
And funneling those lands into the hands of a few wealthy elites. That's what Ahab was actually doing. That was his great crime.
yeah,
The rich were getting richer, the poor were getting poorer. And you step into Jesus's day, that's a great parallel with Caesar because ancestral farmers were losing their farms, their land to the social elite, the economic elite in
mm,
Jerusalem through their
mm-hmm,
complicity with the Roman Empire and taxation and all of that.
yeah,
They were losing their lands. And when Jesus calls for a year of jubilee, he's calling for the land to be returned back, for the slaves to be set free, the land to be returned, the debts to be forgiven.
mm,
People who own land became, it was a three-step process. They owned the land, number one. Then they became um, indentured slaves, number three, because they had to go into debt.
right,
So they number two. So I know I did that backwards, but so they owned the land. They had to go into debt to maintain it. The exploitative nature of the debt caused them to default, where then they became indentured slaves on the farm, the land they used to own
yeah,
that now belong to the wealthy elites in
yeah,
Jerusalem. So I mean, there's some where the rubber meets the road, very concrete parallels between Ahab
very much so, very
and
much so. And you
Jesus' day.
you look at economically how hard it is for people not to go in debt today just to make ends meet,
just to survive.
and how much we are at the mercy of the overlords who own the banks, who own the corporations, who manage all the resources and stuff, and we're scrimping by and slowly digging ourselves into a hole.
Great help to that whole system would be to dismantle all of those agencies that provide consumer protections. If we just get away from consumer protections,
That's,
um,
yeah, yeah,
that's not happening right now, is it?
no,
So,
yeah,
so yeah, I think it is applicable, Todd. There's a lot here. What would Jesus be doing today? And that's my question in my blog this week. Is Jesus was about to get himself crucified for
right,
taking stands against the system in solidarity with those who were being harmed. And here come Moses and Elijah that show up to encourage him on this mountaintop. Who is it in our world today that's about to get crucified, if not
right.
us? Who is it that we need to be Moses and Elijah to? Who do we
And I
need to be
just
coming alongside?
just to draw a different, a kind of a parallel, a biblical parallel, but then because I want to come back to this question, I don't want to dismiss it because you're asking a very important question. Is you do see Jesus and Elijah uh, undermining corrupt religious systems. You see Elijah doing that with the calling down, offering, having the battle of the sacrifices on top of the mountain between
Oh, that's a great parallel.
the priests of Baal and the true God Yahweh, and 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 Yahweh reveals himself as the true God, but Elijah, after that event, believes his life is in very peril because of what has happened, because he knows the whole he has just exposed the whole system as corrupt. And we have Jesus going into
Doing the
Jerusalem and
same
going into
thing.
the temple and exposing the whole system as corrupt. And and then his life, of course, is not just in danger. He loses his life because he exposed the corrupt system of the temple.
So one of the things that I really want to zero in on that you just said is the religious nature of that, right? And I want to encourage us not to compartmentalize like we do today, religion, politics, economics,
Mm,
those things. In Elijah's day, in Moses's day, in Jesus's day, there was no separation of church and state.
right.
The powers that be, those that were in charge, had a religion that went along with that, that was propaganda, basically, to give
Yeah.
divine endorsement of that unjust exploitative system. Then there
True.
was the political power of it, right? Then there was the economics, but it was all bound up together. He wasn't just, it's not like what I want to not do. Elijah wasn't concerned about maintaining the purity of the religion that he belonged
No.
to. You know,
No.
that way his burden wasn't the purity. He was seeing the
No.
way religion was being used to harm the
That's
vulnerable
right.
in his society, where
That's right.
religion was being used as a propaganda agent, right?
That's right.
Jesus has the same concern. To my prophets of Baal in Elijah's day, the temple had become complicit with the Roman Empire in his day. And then jump ahead to today.
Yes.
Christianity is so complicit with the present administration.
Absolutely. And with the market economy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that evangelical Christians to a large degree are responsible for the present administration's win in the last
Yeah.
election. They
Yeah.
are the ones holding the bag. They are the
Yeah.
ones that hold the reins of responsibility for this.
Yeah. We are that's right. We are seeing
I live
this
in a Christian
is
area, and Christianity has become a propaganda machine
yes.
for the present administration.
Yes. No, this is so clearly now become uh, a a religious governance. It very much so is.
I mean,
It's
Project
it,
2025 is being driven
right,
by Christian religious nationalists and
right,
fundamentalists.
right.
I mean, the rise of Christian nationalism and again, you can stand up to politically unjust systems and may live to tell about it. You can stand up to economically unjust systems and may live to tell about it. But when you add religion to it,
Yeah,
you have just made it so much more dangerous and so much more lethal because now when you stand up against it, faithful adherents genuinely believe that you're not just their enemy, you're the enemy of God.
yeah. That's right. And that is how it is being seen by so many of those who are opposed to the administration. It's not just your political rival. It is you're working against.
What God is trying to do in this
That's right.
nation. That's how
That's right.
Elijah wound up in a cave. That's how
That's right.
Jesus wound up on a cross.
That's right. Yeah. So you ask a good question. So who are those people today? Who who are the ones? And
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that. It's more
I
rhetorical.
it is rhetorical, and I'm not sure they've arisen yet. I don't know. I think there's a lot of stunned. Uh,
Yeah, we're still reeling.
I think it seems that way so far, and yeah,
People are still trying to get their feet under them.
I think so. I think so, but I think it's
So
coming.
when
I
the
think,
resistance does emerge,
yeah,
that's who we need to be standing with and supporting.
right, yeah, yeah.
And again, I think there are people that are standing up to them now, but
There
nothing
are,
right now is being successful. Very few things, I should say. I shouldn't say nothing.
yeah,
Yeah, so I think there's a lot in the Transfiguration story for us right now. If we take it out of its religious context and put it into a justice context, I think the
hmm,
parallels between our story this week and society at large that we're living in, our present political landscape, the horizon that we're looking out on, I think there's a lot of fodder there. There's a lot of stuff to work with.
yeah. I think so. I think
So
so.
if you're teaching from the lectionary this week, um, maybe you're here watching this show to just get some ideas on what to share. I think there's a lot of present day examples to work with.
Yeah. What else do you have?
It doesn't necessarily apply to Moses and Elijah, but it is that Hebrew prophetic justice tradition. And this passage struck me this week as I was just looking through the prophets again, trying to grapple with how Jesus was being characterized in Luke's gospel as standing in that tradition. I bumped into this passage, and this passage spoke as if it was being written about what's happening right now. And so I thought I might share it this week. It's Ezekiel 34, 2 through 6. Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Woe to you, shepherds of Israel, who only take care of yourselves. Should not shepherds take care of the flock? You eat the curds, clothe yourself with the wool, and slaughter the choice animals. But you do not take care of the flock. You do not strengthen the weak or heal the sick. You have not bound up the injured. You have not brought back the strays or searched for the lost. You have ruled them harshly and brutally. So they were scattered because there was no shepherd. And when they were scattered, they became food, all the wild animals. So I read that and I thought about, right now, it is the responsibility of us collectively to be taking care of those who are vulnerable. And instead, the reforms or the changes, they call them reforms, they're not. The changes that are taking place are being done with such, they're so harsh and they're so brutal, to use the two
Mm,
words in our passage.
mm,
And it's stripping away the help that was built into the system for those who needed it, only to give greater tax cuts to the wealthy and enrich the shepherds. Instead of taking care of the flock, they're eating the flock. You know what
mm,
I mean? So I
mm.
just thought, this is what Moses and Elijah were about. This is what Jesus was about. It's right here in the book of Ezekiel. This is what the Hebrew prophetic justice tradition is
Yep,
about. We
yep,
need more of that right now.
yep. Very well said. Yeah, that's powerful.
I can feel my voice is about to give out again. I spent all
Okay.
day yesterday with my voice being gone.
Yep.
So I'm trying to hang on to it here for a few more minutes.
Let's let it go. And you know what? I'm going to call it short tonight. I've been called. I think my doggy is needing my attention, so we'll pick up with things next week, and you can find out more about Renewed Heart Ministries at renewedheartministries.com. And we appreciate you guys. So have a great week, and we'll hope to be back at full strength next week.
Thanks for
See you
understanding,
guys.
everyone. Thanks for watching.
Take care.